Alright, so leading up to Australia Day that's later this month, I thought I'll do a few different Australian recipes. So today we're going to be making some Aussie meat pies. And yeah, that's about it. Alright, so my pan is getting heated at a medium to high heat. We're just going to add in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. 1 brown onion, kind of finely diced, chopped. And I would add garlic. But of course, once again, I went to the store and forgot to get garlic. So on the onions, we want to season that with salt just to help it release its like natural liquids, sugars. And we're just going to fry up these onions until they get nice, soft and translucent. Alright, so we want to add some beef mince. I've chosen the lean beef mince, and this is 800 grams. You can definitely use the cheaper, fattier one. I would have used the cheaper one, but there was none, so that's why I picked the lean. The only difference is skimming the fat on the top before you make the pies. So I still might have to skim some of the fat off from this beef, but obviously if it was more of the fattier beef, then there would have been more fat to skim. So yeah, honestly, it doesn't really matter. So we're just breaking down this beef, and we want to keep it, we want I'm going to aim at least to try and get little chunks rather than completely mush. And yeah, just get it nice and browned. Alright, so now we want to add some seasoning to this. So I'm going to do a little bit more salt. Just a pinch. About half a teaspoon of pepper. A teaspoon of dried thyme. I'll just get that all nice and mixed in for just 1 minute. And now for our sauces. So we're going to do barbecue sauce, tomato sauce, and Worcester sauce. So 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce, 2 tablespoons of tomato sauce, and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. I don't know why it's Worcester. Worcestershire sauce. So 2 tablespoons of that as well. Again, we'll mix this all in together, and then we'll just let it sit for a minute. Alright, so I've got 500 ml of beef stock, which I've poured most of it into my mug here, so I'm going to just dump that in. And then with the leftover with corn flour, I'm going to put in like a heaped tablespoon. I'm going to do a heaped tablespoon into the mug and pour in the rest of this stock. And this stock is room temperature as well. But you definitely want to mix the corn flour in with the beef stock before you add it. So that's why I just done like half and half. Pour that in and give that a nice stir, and then with this corn flour, that will definitely thicken up all of this liquid and make a really nice gravy. And we're just going to leave this on a gentle simmer, probably about 30 minutes I'm assuming. I will definitely let you know how long. I'll keep coming back like every so often, like 5 or 10 minutes, to give it a stir. I'm going to turn the heat down to low. And we just pretty much want it to be thickened and reduced a little bit. Alright, so it's been about 35 minutes, and I've just kind of came back 2 or 3 times just to stir it. Obviously it's quite reduced, which is perfect. It's still a little runny. I would have liked it to thicken up a tiny bit more, but when it cools down, it will thicken up even more than what it started off as like to now. So we're going to turn that off and push it to the side and let that cool down. You don't want it to be like completely cool, but you definitely want it to be like closer to room temperature before we start assembling the pies. Alright, so the mixture has cooled down nicely and it's definitely thickened up nicely. I've just got the oven on at 180 degrees, and we've got 2 different types of pastry here. So we've got some short crust pastry for the bottoms and puff pastry for the tops. I'm going to be using the cupcake tray to make my pies and bake them in the oven. You can use a pie maker, or you can have, I actually kind of would like the individual pie tins. I reckon that'd be cool. Or you can also use like a big pie dish and make a full like family size pie. But for me today, I'm going to do individual pies. The pastry is nice and defrosted. I'm just going to do 1 sheet at a time. And because I actually don't have any actual rings, I'm just probably going to cut this in quarters. hopefully that is plenty. Just so a bit more gentler this time. You don't need to grease anything. You don't need to grease the trays. We're just going to pop this in. And where it doubles up here, you just kind of squish it a little bit just to try and make it not so thick in that area. And then just with the excess, I'm just going to run my knife around. So as you can see, our mixture, our gravy has thickened up very nicely. I feel like it's a very good ratio of meat to gravy. So I'm just going to take, we want it to full, but you want about 3/4, a little bit over 3/4 full. You don't want it to the tippy top because it's going to all bubble up and create some steam as well while it's baking. So you don't want it to then overflow and pop up that pastry lid of the puff pastry. So I want it full but not too full. Alright, so now I'm taking the puff pastry here and we'll do the same in quarters. Before we put this on, I am going to crack an egg for an egg wash. And just with a brush, you just want to go around the edges here. Pop that on top gently. I'm pressing and kind of pulling inwards so it gets stuck to the short crust pastry. And then same thing, just run my knife around for the excess. And you can definitely as well use a fork, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to be pressing it because my pastry is very, very soft. It should be perfectly fine, but of course the fork will give it that pattern as well. Alright, so now they're just all going to get quite a nice egg wash on each top. Now we're just going to stab twice just on the top, and that's just going to release the steam because in the oven it's going to create quite a lot of steam inside of the pie, so it's going to help release it. Plus I just like it for the look of it. So now all that's left to do is to put these into the oven at 180 degrees Celsius fan force for about 15, 20, 25 minutes. I'm just going to go by the look, so I'll let you know how long they're in for when I come back. Alright, so they just came out of the oven, and as you can see, this one here has gooped out a little bit, but that'll be okay. I'm just going to let it sit in the tray for about 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to transfer them to wire rack. But you can also see it's starting to pull away from the side, so that's a very good indicator that they're nice and done, and that the pastry underneath as well is cooked. Alright, so that's what all of the pies look like. I accidentally stabbed the knife just because they're quite hot to handle. I let them in the tray for about 5 minutes, but they were still quite hot to touch. So I just had a butter knife just to scoop it in. They came out easily, but I just, stabbed that one. But that's fine. So I'm going to cut this one in half. It just helped cool it down for me. Whoop. I probably shouldn't have cut it on the rack, but that's what we're looking in the inside. I'll show you a close-up of another pie, so how nice and golden it is. But we're going to go and give this bad boy a taste test. It smells incredible, by the way. Alright, meat pie. I'm going to come close for the crunch. It's very good. So many few ingredients, but so much flavour. And although it's minced beef, it's delicious. In the camera it looks kind of dry, but it's not. I did think I could use a little bit more gravy, to be honest, but now I decided to try it the Aussie way with some tomato sauce. It honestly doesn't need it, but it just feels weird eating a meat pie with no tomato sauce. Oh. Not this again. So in total the batch made 10 pies of that cupcake size. I reckon if you do family pies, I reckon you probably get 2. And also with these pies, I've made pies like many times before. If you just wrap them up a couple of times in plastic wrap, they're good to go in the freezer. And then what I do is I just defrost them in the microwave and then just put them back in the oven just to get like a little crisp on them. And then yeah, they work perfectly fine like that to have some in the freezer. So that's all for today's video. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe down below if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my future videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! I come from the land down under.